Just trying to see if I can get the audio figured out. Talking to myself right now, which is par for the course. Oh, there we go. Finally. Figured that out. Alright, I'll get this show started in a minute. Just gotta put all the links into the content and whatever, and then episode 10 live. Just hold on one more minute. I am saying to nobody. All right. Hello and welcome to the first live OMFL Atlanta Falcons review. I am your host, Mike Fleury, and in this one, I'm going to recap the season, do the stats, do all the stuff I've been putting off, and maybe discuss a little of the off season. I don't think I will be doing another show between now and the draft, likely, because the draft will start towards next season. So that's all the preseason show stuff and whatnot. So I'm going to just get right into it. It's weird doing this live. I've never done a show live. I'm usually pre-recorded, or I do it on private, and then I post it later. After I've had a chance to like put the intros in. There will be no intro or outro because I don't have that ability via live. So no Deion Sanders dance, no music, no any of that. We're going to start with the breaking down of the season. I'm going to discuss kind of how we got here. We missed the playoffs, 9-8. if you've watched some of my videos, you may have heard me say things like 10 wins is a good season, whether you make the playoffs or not. And I truly believe that. And this time we just fell short. Started with the Panthers game, first game of the season. And this was not the actual score. As you see, it was a forced win away because we'd gotten somewhere into the fourth quarter and he had a big enough lead. And we didn't have time to replay it. Gets that win. I bounce back with a Vikings game that I play pretty well. Win that one. And then the Lions game happens. And the Lions game really showed me what I was working with. To this point, I had been using my Jaguars offense. And while some of the pieces from the Jaguars to the Falcons can be kind of one for one, like obviously BTJ I had on both teams, ETN and Bijan Robinson are similar enough that you can use them the same way. Engram and Pitts are kind of the same type of tight end. The depth receiving, 2 and 3, and I guess 4, were not the same. And it made me realize that the offense I was trying to bring over just wasn't going to work. He stomped me. So for the rest of the season, I start playing with my playbook more, and that becomes a story in a little bit. But from this point on, I start working on my offense. Panthers game again, he beats me. This is big for the playoffs because he now has the tiebreaker. And then, so at this point, I am 1 and 3, and I'm thinking my season's over, which is fine. I didn't expect to make the playoffs year one, anyways. The team, while built well, was not quite built for me. So when we go on this streak here of winning 4 of our next 5 games, and this one was a sim, it kind of throws my entire viewpoint of the season up in the air. We get the win over the Browns in a close game, lose to the Ravens, as I said, in a sim, beat the Buccaneers in a close game, beat the Bengals in what ended up being a close game, high-scoring game, which is weird for me. I mean, you can look at some of the 13 points, that doesn't count, obviously, 10, 17, nothing, 28 was like the outlier, and then I think in this one I had like 17 before we disconnected, so 38 was, me starting to feel good about my offense. The next week, this technically doesn't count, but I had like 26 points at halftime before we desynced in the first game, so I scored a lot there. This is the game that will haunt me, the CPU game against the Rams. Unfortunately, like a couple days before, the Rams owner gets into his car accident. It really sucks. He's in the hospital. I'm playing the CPU. And I had this thing where I was playing football and not Madden. And if you're playing all Madden CPU, you have to play Madden. You have to play towards beating the game, not playing football. Unfortunately, I didn't realize this I knew it, but I still tried to fight against it, and I didn't give in until somewhere in the third or fourth quarter. Made a comeback, just didn't win, and that loss is what kept me from the playoffs. 10 wins gets me the division. Even if it didn't get me the division, it puts me in good place for the wild card, which would have been against the Bears and like the Vikings, 2 teams that I have wins over. So unfortunately, this is the game that probably cost me the playoffs, but it didn't help that a couple of the games later, as you can see coming on the stream or on the screen, these couple games didn't help things. I beat the Saints. really got under Nate's skin in this one. He was not having a good time. I beat the Packers kind of unfairly, like fairly in the sense that like we didn't like cheat or anything, but like unfairly in that like I hit a Hail Mary between two DBs with like 30 seconds left to get in field goal range. It didn't feel good, but I took the win and I got out of there. And then this stretch of the season, losing to the Saints up 24-7, just heartbreaking. I needed that win. Didn't get it. I didn't finish. I didn't, put my foot down on his throat when I had the opportunity, and I let him just get back into the game, got in my own head. Then I go and play the Eagles, and now I'm stressing because I need the win. Get up 17-14. He scores a touchdown. I don't play well after that. I just barely beat Tampa Bay. And then the Steelers game. And the Steelers game taught me that I needed to change my offense. Because what had happened between week 3 against the Lions and here is that I had built an offense where I had essentially been finding plays to go to one specific player. So I would be like, I'm not throwing to the tight end enough. So I would look for plays and find plays where I really liked the tight end's route so that I could throw to Pitts more. But if Pitts was covered on those plays, I didn't have a second read. I didn't really care about the whole play when I was picking it. I cared about one specific player. And I had plays like that for Pitts. I had plays like that for London, trying to get them the ball more because I was too heavily reliant on BTJ. Trying to get some more touches for Rondale Moore. And finding plays to do that. But when you have just a bunch of plays that are only meant for one receiver, you kind of limit your offense. And I started to feel that in the second half. This was one of those games where you really feel EA's thumb on the scale. Penguins and I have played a lot of great games over the years. Sometimes EA gives me an unfair advantage where it just seems like everything goes right for me. Sometimes does for him. This felt like one of those games where we were both playing great and EA decided to take the game out of our hands a little bit, causing 3 turnovers basically were on EA. And those destroyed any momentum I could have had, any chance I had to fight back. It's an unfortunate loss, but this loss here puts me in a tie with the Panthers, and I'm so frustrated by it, especially later in the game where I stopped being able to move the ball because all my plays are designed for one receiver, and he had really good defense, and if he stops your one receiver, you might not know who it is on the given play, but if he happens to stop that receiver, I had nowhere else to go with the ball, and it got really frustrating. So I went down, tore down my entire offense, built it from the ground up. I took plays that I like for like Kyle Pitts or Drake London, and I found similar plays in similar formations, but that had secondary routes that I liked more. I spent maybe an hour and a half just picking through formations and not just like formations in the same sets, like not just shotgun, but if I knew that single back had a play or had a formation similar, I would look in there. Just reforming my entire offense brings us into the last game of the season, a must-win, and I had probably my best offensive game. The 2 interceptions were on me because I didn't know my offense. I don't know why I decided to change my entire offense before the biggest game of the season. I just did it because apparently I hate myself. I don't know. And I exploded. 329 is well above average for me. I'm more of a 190 to 220 guy. 4 touchdowns. As I said, the 2 interceptions were just me not knowing my reads yet. Not like I know my first read, which is the route I want, and I have a feeling for the other reads. But like on one pass play, I'm supposed to be reading the defense, and if they're in man, I throw to this guy, and if they're in cover 2, I throw to this guy, and if they're in cover 3 or 4, I throw to this guy. And I kind of forgot in the middle of the play where I was supposed to be going, and I threw to my uh, second read, I guess. But really, I should have checked down to my third read because that's the one that was supposed to beat that coverage, and I didn't. And it was just mistakes like that where you're not in tune with your offense. It was a really bad idea to just redo my entire offense that early. But the score doesn't lie. I played pretty well. My defense couldn't do anything. It was weird. I didn't change anything about my defense. But BTJ had a pretty good game. Kyle Pitts had a good game. Moore had a good game. London got some catches and yards. So I'm going to have to continue working on it, continue revamping as we go along. But the hope is next season I'll have a more balanced offense in terms of not just calling plays for one player. I'll be able to use more of the field. I'll be able to use more of the routes. They'll be more useful to me. And hopefully it'll make my offense a little more dynamic and a little harder to stop. My offense is ranked like 26th in points, 28th in yards, or something like that. Because I've never really been an offensive player. I'm mostly a defense and run type player. So unfortunately, we win this game, which is good, and I have a new offense, the beginning of a new offense. I'm going to continue working on it over the offseason. But we win this, but Carolina won their game. So the tie means Carolina wins the division, and 9 wins isn't enough to get us into the into the playoffs. Unfortunately, we end up a game back, basically. There are 2 Ys in the North. I don't know who has the division in the North. 10 wins would have got us into a tie with 3 teams, which could have done anything. So again, that Rams game really kind of screwed me, unfortunately. Not obviously not his like accident. I mean like me not playing the game properly. So unfortunately, that's what happened there. And that's where we sit. I am way too far into this episode. I'm used to 20-minute episodes, but minus the 6 I spent trying to get this set up, I'm already like 15 minutes in. So we're going to move this along a bit as I continue to talk to myself. Here we go. We're going to get into the stats, wrap those up really quick, and then maybe discuss the end of the off-season stuff. Penix, these are not first. Now, I actually, over the course of the that the stats were when because of all the sim games, the ones where we'd play and then we'd have to go to a sim after or whatever. So what I ended up doing is I ended up tracking all of the games, including the stats from the first game. hate using him. Do instead of him, both this game and next. Maybe draft a quarterback. There are use. They're too, but they're not being used very much. Rushing isn't actually particularly good. I don't think. I'm not talking about him. Nor is Gladstone, but there are some quarterbacks. If I can, huh, that might be his quarterback for next year. I'm getting a little off track, but my point being, there are some quarterbacks like Blonde, who's was drafted at like 74 overall. He's a hidden development. He just doesn't get any playing time, and I don't think he gets developed very much. I can't tell if that's focus train or not. I think it might be focus train, so that's good at least. But it kind of ruins him as a trade piece if he can't be used. He's not going to be a rookie anymore. He's probably going to be star development, 22. He loses his rookie year, which is the best year to develop quarterbacks, or, well, really anybody. So, like, you got that problem with Blonde. I know there's like one or two other quarterbacks in other situations. Gaffney's one of them. But if I remember correctly, I talked to Pence about him, and he's developing the crap out of him, trying to get him. Yeah, you can see that. I don't know how he's managing to do that. Maybe the other guy wasn't focus trained. I'll have to check my players, the ones that I focus trained, see what that's doing. But he's putting a lot of work into this guy to be his quarterback for next season when he doesn't have, or not next season, next game when he doesn't have Jordan Love. But, he's not getting played. There's just a lot of like really good young QBs from last draft. There's, I think, 3 or 4 that just aren't going to get any playing time. But unfortunately, because they got no playing time and they didn't get developed much, there's not much you can do. Like Cam Fowler was drafted after the first season, and he's basically been left to rot. And like he has some really good, base statistics, but at this point he'll be a third-year QB at 24 and only 75 overall. You can't develop him anymore. There's no development left. So he got left to rot in there, but we couldn't trade him after the first season, and he didn't. And we had a different Chargers owner at the time, but they didn't really put in the work with him. So unfortunately, we have too many really good young QBs that have been destroyed. But by not being used. But on the other hand, I wonder. He's a scheme fit. I wonder if maybe he's. Oh, he might be training the backups at full pads. Interesting. If he's all of his focus players are backup players, like young players that he's trying to develop, that might be something to look at for next year. Interesting. Anyways, I'm getting way off track, and this is going to be like a 30-minute live episode that I'm talking to myself in. But yeah, we're gonna have to look to find a way to step away from Penix, both in this Madden and the next. Running, we did fairly well. Tavita Little was great, 507 yards. Really earned the name that I gave him. Um, the long story short version is the first ever Madden league I was in. I drafted a running back named Tavita Little, who I spent like 5 seasons just enjoying the crap out of. Completely changed my entire franchise. I was the Giants back when like Beckham Jr. was a rookie, so he was rated like 74, and Eli was old as balls, and the team just wasn't that good. And I traded everybody, and one of the things I got back was a pick that got him, and I spent the next 5 seasons being 10-win minimum. He was getting 12 to 1,500 yards a season. I just really enjoyed playing. I still have some videos on my Twitch from back in those games. So now every league that followed, if I get a rookie or a created running back that I enjoy using similarly, just that feels really good to use and I really enjoy it, I give him this name. Bijan Robinson, only 935 and 12 touchdowns, but he missed 4 games. Technically 5. Well, no, the way the injuries work, the 4 weeks, then you sim, and it goes down. So he missed 3.5 weeks, basically. So probably lost 40, 50 carries. Might have ended up over 1,000 yards had he not gotten hurt. Just unfortunate, but I'm hoping they don't take away his superstar development. BTJ, the crazy season. He is my focal point, but as you can see, I also get the ball to London, Pitts, a little bit to Moore. 87 catches isn't a ton. It's not force feeding as far as I'm concerned, and I don't pass the ball a lot to begin with. So, and Drake London 60 for 685. I'm hoping that with the new playbook, if a lot of my first reads are going to be Pitts and BTJ, I'm hoping he can be my check down, and along with London, and maybe we can get these two to get more yards and more touches, which will only help increase my offensive output. BTJ might go down to like 12 or 1,500 yards, like a normal receiver, but I'm hoping these three will be able to step up under the new offense that prioritizes multiple reads and getting somebody open and mismatches and whatnot. Blocking was fine. Too many sacks for Fashano, but you can't really blame him. Penix is left-handed, so I rolled out to the left more. But generally a pretty decent season for these guys. Blocking kind of struggled early, but I figured it out eventually. At least I think I do. I am going to have to, along with the quarterback, I'm going to have to eventually bring in probably one more offensive lineman. We're going to see who's available just for a year. And then we'll probably draft a future offensive lineman. We're starting to think about imports, and I'm probably going to do a QB and offensive lineman. And if I can earn the third one, maybe a corner. But we're going to see who I have available, because I do tend to trade my picks. Speaking of, I'm trading my first round pick this offseason. I've already got it pretty much negotiated. It'll be about the 15th overall pick. I'm trading it to bolster my linebacking core, because Baker's going to take a step back. He'll probably become my user because he's fast. Bertrand just didn't feel good as a user. I didn't enjoy using him. So I'm going to find a better what do I even call it? Off-ball linebacker, off-user linebacker than Baker, and then I'm going to user Baker. I gotta get a new safety. Woodson, sometimes I use the safety, very rarely, but sometimes, and he just doesn't feel good when he's in user control. He didn't have a great season tackles, sure, but interceptions, deflections was fine, but he just doesn't feel great. Like, I felt better using Xavier Howard than I did him. And Xavier Howard's gone because he's going to regress again, be like 86 speed. He's gone. I'm losing a few members of my defense and my secondary, so gotta go and figure out my safeties. I gotta go and figure out, now that I have the linebackers set up, I'm gonna have to figure out my pass rush. I'm thinking of moving a row to I'm such an idiot, to defensive end and bringing in, maybe move Dorless over to defensive tackle, be the backup DT, re-sign Benton, bring in another defensive tackle, and then that's, just kind of reshuffle how I do things. And Ebiketie stays for one more year as one of my pass rushers. He's fine. I don't hate him. He's pretty good. I don't think he'll regress, so we should be okay for one more year. It's going to have to be a new defense. That's part of the issue with this team, is that I had such a hard time with defense at parts because the defense wasn't built for me. When I build teams, I build offensive line and the secondary first, and then I figure everything else out. And Hurt put work in on the secondary, but these guys, they're fine. They're not studs. They're just kind of good. But like, had I taken the team to start with, my corners would have probably been Bates and Lattimore. 1-2, brought in a free safety, to replace, and then my entire secondary is different. My offensive line, I wouldn't have had to spend as much as I ended up having to build it, because I got a lot of the same players for less, or like a second round draft pick. I drafted one of my linemen with a second round draft pick that I ended up having to trade him as part of a bigger deal. Actually, my corners would have been A. Terrell and Lattimore, with who knows as my strong safety. Wouldn't have mattered. Also, Atlanta has money to go over any of the defensive stats. You guys saw them. They were on the screen. You know what happened. Got about a franchise tag him, re-sign him, and then basically nobody else, maybe Woods, I don't know. But basically nobody else is coming back. None of these players. And then we get into that's going to accept his option. Going to accept his option. Going to decline this option. Yeah, that hurts. Yeah, that hurts. But I got one more cheap year with them, so that'll be fine. But those are the only two players, and maybe the punter. I don't know. Punter's one of those things I don't really like. He played fine. I have no problem with this guy. If I bring him back, it's punting. I don't really. Just get a punter with a strong leg and 93 pounds. I'm kicking the ball as far because it'll just. It's 1.3 million for nothing. But anyways, in re-signs, what we're address safeties, an offensive lineman, um, quarter. Good player. He's just not fast. It's just the biggest problem. Just 88 speed makes it. It's part of the reason I couldn't run my Jaguars offense. Is he's just too slow to fill in the role for Colin Fredrickson, who was like a low 90s speed guy and like really shifty. This guy isn't that. He's more of a Michael Pittman Jr. type player. So I've had to revamp my entire to try to get him the ball more. And that's part of what caused all the problems with the offense that happened when the Steelers game. Like it wasn't that it all happened in the Steelers game. It's just that I finally noticed it happened in the Steelers game. Anyways, so that is my season breakdown, my statistical breakdown. I did a little talking over what I'm going to do in free agency. It's not like a giant secret. I don't know who I'm going to go for. We're going to see what happens. I'm not going to show you my draft board because that would be stupid. Waiting for the last game to sim tonight. Then we'll get probably 4 or 5 days for the playoffs. Sorry, I lost the word playoff. So that puts us like probably Thursday, Friday for the bowl game. Maybe Wednesday, like if they speed it along, Sunday, Monday. Maybe Wednesday, Thursday. And we got re-signs, free agency. We can do that in 3 days. So we might have the draft by next Saturday, but Nate will never allow it. As he didn't allow it last time, he'll never allow it this time. So there's no point of even thinking that we're going to get a draft on a day I can draft. So I'll probably just have to set a draft board, or maybe try to figure out how to get this thing going. You know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. At least I think I know what I'm talking about. Where am I going? The thing where you can draft from somewhere else because I'll be at work. Oh, you know what I mean. I'm not gonna remember the name of it, but maybe I'll be able to draft from work. Um, Anyways, this has gone on far longer than I thought it would. I think we're at like, God, probably 30 minutes now. 30, minus the first 6, we're probably at about 35 minutes. These episodes are usually shorter, but I cut out all the rambling. So this is what it's like to be, if anybody watches this later, and I don't get to edit my ramblings and my thought processes down. It's just long ass videos. But nobody's watching right which makes sense. It's like 30 at night. I'm looking to see if any. Oh, Nate. Anyways, I've gone on long enough. We're gonna get out of here. Got a lot of work to do in the off season. We're gonna figure it all out. Got a lot of moves to make, and then last 2 seasons, so we start worrying about. I don't know. I was thinking about selling off as many players as I could before the final season to get draft picks, to get 3 players, to get 3 picks for the imports, but that would just be a waste of a season. So I'll probably just try to get my imports through this draft and next, and hope for the best. Yeah, that's it. That is all from us for the OMFL Atlanta Falcons review. I've been your host, Mike Fleury. The next episode will be probably next Monday or Tuesday after the draft. I might film one in the afternoon before work. So, with some editing. There's the thing with this, the reason I'm doing it live is because there's nothing to edit in. There's no videos, there's no highlight reels, there's no anything. So you might as well just do it live. And the same thing will be said for. I'm almost at 40 minutes. I got to get out of here. The same thing will be said for the next episode. There won't be anything to splice in, so I might do that one live too, just like a preseason. This is what we did, kind of thing. Get started on next season's gold. This episode is my 10th, so I'm done with these. I got one more highlight pack to make. I've written all the articles, plus the 8 or 9 points I have for my level, plus a bunch of other stuff. I'll be well over 200 points, get gold tier, and continue on with trying to build this team. Anyways, once again, because it's tradition now, for the OMFL Atlanta Falcons review, I've been your host, Mike Fleury, and as always, I'll try to do better next time.